Thanks, Tom. I will address some of the Q&A questions. Perhaps just to say that thanks to Rob Moody and yourself for that informative and insightful presentation. I'm certain that the participants will agree that the export environment could potentially be very daunting. But with these tools, it definitely helps in obtaining realistic market opportunity or potential market intelligence, sector and product analysis, and of course, market nuances in order to develop a concerted go-to-market strategy. I think, with those sentiments, we could look at some of the questions that has been posed by the participants. And of course, one of the questions that perhaps not a question, but certainly a request, is from Roy Harrington, who says that the procurement policy notes, which is a UK procurement document, provides guidance on best practice. Is it possible to share more information on those procurement notes? Because that could be useful for South African exporters. Perhaps if you could, Tom, if you could deal with that issue.
Okay, so I'm not a policy person, I'm a technology person. But my understanding is that all public procurement notices in the UK they're all available on the gov.uk website. And so I don't think I 100% understand the question.
Yeah, perhaps not a question, but certainly, in terms of information dissemination and sharing of information on the procurement document itself. But perhaps, we'll check with our colleagues to obtain the document, and we could, through Rob and his team, we could certainly see how it's disseminated. Thank you for that.
I don't think we've got any. I don't think we have any restrictions on which countries can bid for any of our public procurement notices. So hopefully that will. Again, it should be a fairly simple Google search to find the list of all the current opportunities.
Thank you. Yeah. Thanks, Tom. I don't see any further questions.
Can I just jump in on that? As Tom said, the gov.uk site should bring that up. But, with what we do after our webinars, we go through all these Q&As. We can't necessarily answer everything in the session because we're not specialists on everything. But certainly we go through the questions, and if we're unable to answer it, we will try to find it and provide an answer in the digest that we put out after each webinar. So that is noted. I'll also do a look on the gov.uk website. And if we can find that there, we'll put the link to that in the digest that goes out after the webinar. So please do keep an eye on that. And if I can't find it on the gov.uk website, we'll try and get hold of it via the channels, via the UK High Commission here and the Department of International Trade here. Or I might reach out to Tom to see if he can get some help from one of his colleagues on the UK side. But we'll try and address that for sure in the digest afterwards. Thanks.
Thank you, Rob. A further question that's been posed is in terms of measures that could potentially be taken to mitigate the effect of the rate of exchange fluctuations. And of course, as to subsequently increase favorable terms of payment with foreign suppliers. Rob, is that something you can take?
I can certainly give it a shot. There are probably multiple different ways. First of all, in your conditions, your terms, your agreement, your export agreement, you could always put in there to designate a currency, so you could put it in with a foreign currency, so that as fluctuation happens with the rand, for example, or your pula, nam dollar, whatever, you could fix it in a foreign currency rate if you're concerned about your own currency's devaluation. That means that you end up with more local currency because you fixed it in a foreign currency. If you are, whatever your conditions are that you negotiate with your buyer, your importer on the other side, if they are unwilling to fix it in a foreign currency rate and they fix it in your currency rate, your best bet is then to speak to your bankers. It will depend on what Incoterms you're using, what terms of trade you're using. But if you carry that risk, you are best then to speak to your bankers to see how they may be able to hedge. You could possibly buy exchange forward to fix an exchange rate. There's always a cost to that because somebody carries the risk somewhere. And your best bet is to try and share the risk. If you can't get your buyer to fix it in their, in the foreign currency, so for example, British pounds, and you're concerned that your currency may be devaluing, if you have to share that risk or carry that risk, the best is to talk to your bankers. That's about the best route that I can suggest. Unfortunately, exchange rate risk is an ever-present fundamental of export business. There are multiple risks and there are multiple challenges when you're dealing in export, but you have to try and hedge against them as best you can. Either fixing it in a foreign currency if you're concerned about devaluation, or speaking to your bankers about trying to buy currency forward fix an exchange rate forward. That will come at some sort of a cost, but unfortunately that's part of the game.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. I think for South African exporters, the Export Credit Insurance Corporation also provides foreign risk cover. So certainly, there's other avenues, as you rightfully hinted at. Another question is in terms of potential for exporting natural cosmetic ingredients through to the UK. What's that potential?
The tools can be used, the tools that we've linked through, they can be used to identify it exactly specific, statistically, so that you can actually see the value. As Tom was saying, sometimes a product is not detailed to the level of, for example, marula oil specifically, or magongo or Kalahari melon seed specifically, but in a group of products. And you'll see the potential revealed there. I'd also suggest go to our hub website, pop us an email there, because in our value chain work, we are covering, some of these products are involved in some of the sectors. So for example, in Botswana, condiments and high specialty foods, it could fall into that category. Some of these are used in cosmetics industry and also in the food industry. So this cosmetics and natural ingredients sector, it's covered in Botswana. Focus also in Eswatini on condiments and high specialty foods. Lesotho, cosmetics and natural ingredients. In Namibia, cosmetic and natural ingredients, and South Africa, cosmetics and natural ingredients as well. So if you are in that field, then pop us an email and we can put you in touch with our lead on value chain work. And we're appointing specialist experts on each of these value chains. And we could certainly point you to them to work through the various business support organizations that we are engaging with for these kind of products. So use the tools on the website, on the hub, and pop us an email, and we will certainly point you to, there we go. I see there's a comment coming from my colleague Cleopatra Ngulube, who says that it's been posed by the head of NPAB, and it's okay, so you're working together. So your best bet is to use the tools, and if you can't in contact with my colleague Cleo, we will certainly do a little bit of a detailed exercise to pull that up for you.
Thanks, Rob. I think a follow-up question to that is, in terms of defining the market potential for new products or niche products that are not found in the ITC trade tools, you know, and I think reference here is made, for an example, to the emerging green economy, for an example, where the, you know, HS codes has not been classified. And so, you know, the question is, would it be possible for TFSA to establish a database of UK agencies that manufacturers and sellers that could be contacted? I think the difficulty here is that, you know, it's not knowing which consultant offers which services as well. Thank you.
Yeah. On that, you know, TFSA has what we call a drawdown facility that we can apply short-term technical cooperation consultancy services to. And this a first call has gone out to about 170 business support organizations across the whole Southern African region of SACU and Mozambique. And, you know, if there are inquiries from a particular company, I would suggest make contact with your local export agency or your key chamber of business and work with them. I think that is an area that we could definitely apply short-term technical cooperation to go through an exercise. The call has been put out, and we're doing a further reach out to about 40 key knowledge centers that we're developing in the region. That could certainly be something we could consider in a proposal from a business support organization, either an export agency or a chamber of commerce or a sector association. And we can look at that proposal and apply, you know, put some funding to identifying, if you know consultants in the UK who could do that, please let us have their names and we can apply that drawdown facility to work with them. Otherwise, we would try to identify specialists, because that kind of thing becomes very specialist knowledge and it's not a generalist who could answer it. We would certainly work with our network of consortium partners and the UK DIT and High Commission to see through their chambers in the UK even, to see if we can identify people who have that knowledge, and we can use the drawdown facility to put together something like that about the rules and regulations that pertain to it, or the specialist buyers and importers of certain categories. I can't guarantee it, but that would be a viable solution that we could offer, I think.
Thanks, Rob. If I could perhaps revert back through to Tom. There's a question on the tariffs that you're on your presentation. And the question is, does it in fact change different times of the year?
You're on mute, Tom. I should get a badge. I'm the first person to be on mute should get a badge in any presentation. Not for all goods, but for some it does. Certainly with things like certain types of fruit and vegetables, where we have a market and we have our own harvest season, at that point the tariffs will go up for, I think like for cherry tomatoes, I know that there is a higher tariff in the summer when our harvest comes, and it's low in the winter when we don't have a harvest. So I think you can look at trade tariff will be useful to find out for any particular good whether or not that changes throughout the year. I think it is only in agricultural stuff that applies, but that may be a big part of what actually is being exported from your trading block.
Yeah. Thanks, Dom. And then finally, there's a question on whether there's a section on the UK, on the gov.uk site that can assist with labeling requirements for certain products that are imported into the UK from South Africa.
So the labeling requirements, as I understand it, are captured in the regulations, but we do have things like a product safety office, and we do have a team in the Department for Business, Energy, Industrial Strategy. I just know them as BEIS.
Yes, yeah.
So they know about our regulatory environment a lot more in practice, and they are able to. There's a product safety office that can kind of provide that type of advice. In the UK, a lot of the conformity assessments are done in the private sector, and government sets a framework and devolves down to that level. So there should be some information on there, or there should be people who can help you, but we provide you with the raw legislation. Because we are working with lots of different types of users, we have seen that some of the feedback we've had in our user testing is, I'd like to know this stuff. I'd like to not have to deal with the complexities of it. But I get more value out of worrying about having good products and having good deals than becoming an expert in labeling regulations. And so certainly for small to medium enterprises, I think they view local expertise in this area as being a necessary process to have to go through, rather than an exciting new opportunity for them to learn.
Thanks, Tom. And then, if I could come back to you, Rob, a final question. Are these tools and the TFSA Trade and Information Hub only open to government, chambers of commerce, and other export agencies?
Luke, thanks very much for that. They're freely available to everybody, not only government and not only the export agencies and not only chambers of commerce. And indeed, our target audience is exporters. It's just that as a program, it's impossible for us to deal with every exporter across the region, so we work through the chambers of commerce. But the intent behind this is that the chambers of commerce, the export agencies, government, do disseminate this information and the availability of the hub and the tools to the actual exporting businesses. So that is the end target audience. The business chambers and export agencies are purely the channel and the vehicle by which we disseminate the knowledge and information. But it's definitely aimed at exporters at the end of the day. So any exporter, any manufacturer and producer of goods across the whole region can access them. And indeed, we made it available even wider than Southern African Customs Union. We've had people from Malawi and Ghana contact us already saying, can we use this? And the British Growth Gateway team was one of the first questions they asked us, can this be made available more widely, even outside of Southern Africa? And we said, absolutely. The more people on the continent who benefit and can use these tools, the better. And just if I can just add on to what Tom said about, the fluctuations between summer season agricultural products. Mostly, I don't believe that will apply too much to products from the Southern African region. And indeed, that is one of the seriously good competitive advantages that producers down here have compared to their Northern Hemisphere competitors, is that our seasons are opposite. So our summer season is their winter season, and that's exactly when UK buyers are looking to get sources of the various products that are not grown in the Northern Hemisphere in winter. So, this is beyond the rules and regulations. This is a business competitive advantage that, I think South Africa and countries in the region have used as a marketing tool for many, many years. So the citrus industry, the deciduous fruit industry in particular, supply into the Northern Hemisphere when their growing season is off. And just to touch on the labeling regulations and so on, again, to the best of my recollection, if you go into that UK trade help desk site, it indeed does cover the regulations, the requirements for labeling. Now, there's always an element of needing to adjust your labeling for local market conditions. You know, in one country, a particular color of a label or design of a label doesn't go down as well as what you might be using at home. So there's an element of that which is important to keep in mind. It's not always just the regulations and legislation. And, you know, there are other elements that are not rules and regulations in law, but as Tom was alluding to, there are other non-legal requirements. So, for example, the British Retail Council, they have particular things, and a lot of these are also linked in the various websites that we've brought into the hub, and you'll see that. At the end of the day, it is crucially important that you engage early with your potential buyer to make sure that you are keeping in line with the regulations, because your buyers will also probably be well versed with them. And there are nuances that are not always in legislation that you need to speak to your buyer about. And it's the same with branding. If you're branding, that is not a rule or a regulation that is applied. So you need to speak to your buyer that side as well. There's always law applicable, and then there's business applicable as well.
Rob, thank you so much for that elaboration. I think, you know, that, you know, that brings us to almost an end to this webinar. I just want to reiterate what Rob had said earlier on, that answers to the questions, including some of the unanswered questions, will be posted in the November edition of the TFSA Digest. The recording of this particular webinar will be out before the digest. So please check your social media platforms or YouTube channel at Trade Forward Southern Africa for the release of this recording. We also encourage all participants to go to the TFSA hub at tfsouthernafrica.org and explore and practice and use the tools that has been demonstrated here today. I mean, you know, this was just a glance of some of the features. You'll have to go more intricately into it. So follow the TFSA on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter, and look out for future invitations as well. Thank you for attending this webinar. The next webinar will be on Wednesday, 8 December 2021 at the same time, and we'll focus on particular challenges and actions to support women in trade across SACU and Mozambique. So please save the date and stay informed on the TFSA webinars, program activities, and training. I had mentioned the website, perhaps just to say that again, www.tfsouthernafrica.org. So my last appeal to please complete the feedback survey that will pop up in your browser when you leave the webinar. And thank you for your participation. Thank you for the presenters. It's been very enlightening. I would like to thank TFSA and the program itself. Certainly, you know, I think we're growing competitiveness in the region, and of course that competitiveness will translate into export success. So thank you so much, and I now then declare this webinar closed. Thank you.
Thank
Cheers,
you very
bye-bye.
much.